And all right, we are broadcasting. Welcome to another episode of the Pirates Podcast, to be named later. I am Eddie Provident. With me, as always, is the one and only Alex Stump. The 14-7 Pittsburgh Pirates. Who had this late into April, Alex?
I didn't. Even in your optimism, you didn't have it.
I did not have 14-7, not at all. There's a lot to talk about this baseball team. There's a lot to be excited about this baseball team for the fans out there. It's good times. The Pirates vibes have taken over and surpassed the Penguins vibes. It might even surpass Steelers vibes for right now.
You know what? If there was ever an April for the Pirates to get their act together, this was definitely the April 4th.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure. What do you want to talk about this first segment, man?
I teased Eddie and I said I got the idea for the first segment. And he's like, oh, what is it? I'm like, I'm not telling you. I want your genuine live reaction for this. So
let's have it.
Edward Provident, I ask you, are the 2023 Pittsburgh Pirates a good baseball team? Yes or no? Binary answer.
Yes. 100% yes.
All right.
Now, do we go into what our definition of good is?
Sure. I wanted the binary answer first.
I'm going to say yes. I think that there are things that you could fake. I think there's things that you can get lucky with in baseball. It's a 162-game season. I think baseball is, out of all of the sports, just sometimes the ball's going to go a certain way. It's going to bounce a certain way. Pitches are going to do certain things. I think there's times where there's luck involved with baseball, but I do think that there are stretches and there are things that you could see throughout a season that lend themselves to whether or not a team is good or bad, or being able to have a real idea of a baseball team. The Pirates are fighting through adversity with injury, so that's number one. I mean, they have two or three pieces that are not available to them right now. One obviously being O'Neal Cruz. G-Man Choi is now out for 8 weeks, right? Is that what?
Yeah,
what I
that's
saw?
the estimate at the moment. Yeah.
So there's a lot of there that could be excuses for this baseball team to say, oh well, we lost this person, we don't have these pitchers available, and they're just fighting through that, and they are playing through that. We are seeing players like Ji-Hwan Bae, who admittedly over the last couple games has probably come down to earth a little bit, but has been a solid contributor. Not to steal your thunder for the second segment, but Andrew McCutchen has been. I don't think anybody anticipated Andrew McCutchen being what he's been. Bednar is right back to what we all thought Bednar would be and what we loved about him last season. Colin Holderman has been a surprise. The pitching as a whole, this is after Friday's game, 11 games, 11 straight quality starts for Pirates starting pitchers. I didn't have that. I definitely didn't have that coming. I'm not going to keep rambling because everybody wants to hear you talk about this baseball team, but I just think that there are too many things stacking up 21 games into the season for you to say that they're not. There's just too many reasons for you to say that they are a good baseball team rather than they're not a good baseball team. Maybe in a month or two that can change, but right now the 2023 Pittsburgh Pirates are a good baseball team.
You see, and my answer is right now, yes, they are a good baseball team, but I'm being a little more specific here. The April 2023 Pittsburgh Pirates are a good baseball team. And I don't want to say this team has been they've been injury bit so far. They've been able to manage without O'Neal Cruz swimmingly so far because of what Rodolfo Castro has done at shortstop. But what happens if he cools off a little bit? You don't have a whole lot of depth at that position. Starting pitching, they already lost to Brubaker. Oviedo has shown quite well that he could, fill that spot. But what happens after the next pitcher who goes down? Because do you go to Luis Ortiz whenever he's still developing pitches? Do you go to Quinn Priester whenever he just got shellacked, on Friday night and didn't have his best stuff? We don't know still the fate of Mike Burrows, who's still waiting for his second opinion, which could be another piece of depth there. And quietly, this kind of goes against WAR, but quietly, one of the most valuable players on this team is Bednar. Just having that ninth inning on lockdown. And we've seen 2 years in a row where he gets hurt. I don't know what happens to this bullpen if they lose a Bednar, if they lose a Holderman, because they've been a strength so far, but are they still a strength whenever you got to go to Robert Stevenson in the 7th or 8th? If you got to go for Dwayne Underwood Jr. for save situations, they have performed well. And I don't want to sound like I'm, belittling their contributions, their performances, because they have played well. It's just, if you lose more impact talent, what happens? And this team isn't going to be this healthy, over the course of a whole season. It's weird to say, I don't want to say they've been injury lucky, because they're without arguably their best player for 4 months out of all of this. But if a Reynolds goes down, if a Sawinski goes down, if a Keller or a Bednar, then I think there is a big domino effect here. But that hasn't happened right now. And as they are constructed right now, they are a good baseball team that has done what good baseball teams do. Whenever they play the Cardinals, the Astros, the White Sox, teams that came into the year with playoff hopes, they've played 500 ball, and then they've beat up everyone else. And that's what a good team is supposed to do. Yeah. Play hard against the good teams and beat the bad teams. They've done that so far, so you can't say anything other than these first 21 games, they have been a good baseball team. Now we got to see what comes next.
One of the things that you were kind of alluding to here. So I watch my favorite podcast that isn't on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network.
Good save.
It's a show called the Steve Dangle Podcast. For those of you who do not know about Steve Dangle and the Steve Dangle Podcast, they are based out of the Toronto area, and they are a predominantly Maple Leafs podcast. We're getting into hockey here, but you'll understand in a second. The Maple Leafs have had 7 years in a row of playoff hockey, and so far this year being the 7th year. 6 of those years they've been ousted in the first round. And listening to Toronto Maple Leafs commiserate about how just in the way their brains work, everything that can go wrong in the playoffs will go wrong. If you listen to Toronto Maple Leafs fans, they're constantly going to lose in the play, because that's what they have been accustomed to as fans. They'll get to the playoffs, lose in the first round, and somehow, some way, everything's going to fall apart. I think Pirates fans are a lot like that. We are incapable as a city of seeing the positive side of Pirates baseball right now. We can't do it long term. Everybody in this city, the way you were just talking, even the way that I was talking, we are so accustomed to this team falling apart, doing something dumb, fizzling out, whatever it be. Even when the Pirates were in the playoffs, they only had 1 year where they got past the wild card round. I would love for one conversation, and I realize that it may not be possible, but I would love for one conversation to just be looking at the second half of what you talked about, Alex. None of that has happened yet. None of the bad has happened yet. This team is playing good baseball. This team currently they're as constructed right now, playing very, very solid baseball against good baseball teams. And then, like you said, beating up on bad baseball teams. And I'm not going to sit here and say, you know what? They're eventually going to fizzle out. They'll eventually, regress to the mean. Maybe they are just a good baseball team and there is no regression to the mean. Now, do I think that they're going to keep this pace up, a 14-7 pace up, which is an over 100 win pace? No, I don't think that, and I don't think anybody thinks that. But why can't we just say, yeah, The Pirates are one of the better teams in Major League Baseball right now. And if they keep this up, that's how it's going to trend.
It's just the injury history. Like there's a lot going right with this team right now. This is I remember even back whenever I was saying like this team's going to win like 70, 72 games, I said there was a pathway to making the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And right now they're on that pathway. Right now they're on that doesn't mean they're playoff bound or anything or expected, but 21 games in, they have done what they need to do. That also comes with a lot of Jack Sawinski having a 1,000 OPS, Brian Reynolds having a 1,000 OPS, Andrew McCutchen playing like he's back in 2015 for him. And there's just so much stuff that has gone right so far, and players are going to get cooled off. They're going to get hurt. What happens then? We've seen this team face one bit of adversity so far, and that's Oneil Cruz, and they have done an outstanding job. Like the way Rodolfo has played, the way that the lineup has come through, even someone like Key, actually producing at the top of the order. He might not have been a logical leadoff man, but so far he's done better in that role than he did, early on in the season. Yep. He's starting to find his swing. You need to keep getting contributions like that over the whole course of a whole year. Like the reason why this team is 14-7 is because they have 20 guys, 20 to 26, whatever the number you want it to be, guys who are contributing in some way. There hasn't been a slouch on this team really.
But what far. If that's but now look,
no team has 26 players that do this.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. Every team has their slumps. Every single baseball team has their slumps. Even the elite of the elite baseball teams have slumps. They go through 3 or 4 game skids. Hell, the Dodgers got swept by the Pirates last year. Mm-hmm. It happens, okay? Every team goes through it. But what if this is more the normal than the slumps would be the normal? Like, what if this is this baseball team?
Well, if that is the case, it's going to be because of a couple guys, and the big one is going to be who we're talking about here in this second segment. No, this is as smooth a transition we're ever going to have on this show. So we're going to take a break. Whenever we come back, the return of Andrew McCutchen has been everything the Pirates could have ever hoped for.
And just like that, we're back to talk about Andrew McCutchen on the Pirates podcast to be named later. As always, I'm Eddie. This is Alex. So let's talk about him, man. I don't think that anybody in baseball, in Pittsburgh, anywhere, expected this kind of season, this kind of start to the season from Andrew McCutchen. I expected him to be a spark plug. I even said that when we did our preseason predictions and everything, that I thought he would give them a little bit of an emotional charge. Dude, I didn't see this, and I don't know how anybody could have. Why is he this good right now? Like, what are you seeing? You're close to the team. You follow them around. What are you seeing from Andrew McCutchen?
I mean, I think he's being used. To give the very literal baseball reporter answer here, he's being used well. He's being used well. He's getting more off days than he did, in the past in Milwaukee. They really want to make sure that this is over the course of a full season. He's DHing more. The matchups are beneficial. He's got a good hitter behind him in Carlos Santana, who, if you omit like that first series against the Reds where his timing was off, has just been fantastic this season. And actually, we're probably far enough removed that you could just see like he's got really good offensive numbers. There's a lot of stuff. He's made a couple mechanical changes. He lowered his hands. He's getting better swings off. And of course, the actual, he's happy to be back in Pittsburgh. He gets to sleep in his own bed. He's with his family. All that needs to go through. But I think a big thing that can't be overlooked here is how well he fits into this clubhouse. And he's been asked a couple times, like, do you like the leadership role? Do you like that? And he's candidly said, like, no, it's not something where it's like, okay, I get to go, be the leader of his clubhouse. He's not, super, you got to do this. I want to be that type of guy, but he is that guy, and not even like in a reluctant type of way, but he recognizes he is that guy. and you just see him have these conversations in a clubhouse with different players. A lot of them may not even be baseball related, but there's a sense of accountability that he brings to this group. There's that veteran leadership. There's that accountability. There's that. Whenever they were having those dance parties, I asked a player, and they were like, "What are they playing?" I put it in my story. Oh man, I can't even remember this song. The Baby was one of them, and I only knew that because The Baby is the stupidest rap name I have ever heard in my life. Young Thug, I think, was one of their, like, whatever there was, and then they were like, McCutchen's song, his walk-up music, like that's at the top of the batting order it was like specifically laid out. Cutch's song. It's like, this is why this guy is here. We respect him. He gets to listen to his music whenever we win.
Do you know what my favorite Andrew McCutchen moment of 2023 is so far?
What?
Sawinski's home run the other night.
When he got stabbed by the cutlass?
No. When, like, you just, like, Kutch just standing there like a proud dad. Like, just smile ear to ear on his face while Sawinski's rounding the bases. And he just, like, it was such a genuine look on his face. It was such a, like, you could see he wasn't happy that his team was winning. I mean, obviously he's happy his team was winning, but he was happy for Jack Sawinski.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Jack Sawinski had a very slow start to this season. He had a rough go of it for the first, couple series. And lately he's found whatever it was last year that he had.
Yeah.
And I think seeing Andrew McCutchen see a young dude like that succeed and watching his reaction to that was my favorite Andrew McCutchen moment of the season so far, just because you could tell what this means to him. Like, I know you said it's maybe reluctance, not the right word, but it's not exactly something that he pursues. But I think that sometimes in life, that's how you become a good leader.
Yeah.
Good leaders don't normally want leadership.
No.
They take it, and they take it when it's given to them, and they do something with it. And I think that's what Andrew McCutchen is doing right now.
Obviously, we weren't alive for 1979, but I see, just based off of the stories and what you hear, I see a little bit of like what Stargell did for that 79 team.
Yeah.
And Kutch right now. And
that's a really good
yeah. I think it's something that if he doesn't have any, real interest of ever leaving the Pirates again, I think there's a pretty good chance that not this year, but a couple years down the road, he's going to retire a Pirate. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this year, but this is last year's team after the trade deadline. And the Quintana trade is so. We now look and we see Johan Oviedo, and he has been great. Johan Oviedo for 6 years, I believe it is. Team control, even if it's just 5. Like, great guy to have in the clubhouse. Great guy to have in the rotation. He has the stuff to be a major league starting pitcher. From a baseball sense, that trade looks really good. But from a clubhouse sense, man, did they become listless a little bit whenever they lost Stratton and Quintana, 2 guys who were, the hold you accountable type. And I'll tell you, like, they limped across that finish line. There is no coincidence that losing Quintana made a bad baseball team play even worse down the stretch. I could check where the calendar was, but the Arizona series, whenever they're starting, Tyler Beatty, who was claimed off waivers as a reliever, is starting once every 5 games. You kind of got a feel in that clubhouse like, oh man, this team might actually lose 100.
But also, young teams like that need those players,
exactly
to hold them accountable, to learn, to understand what accountability actually is at the big league level. You're absolutely right about that.
And it's not just Kutch, it's Carlos Santana, who, especially with the young Spanish speaking infielders like Castro, like really in Marcano, really good guy to have in that group. Rich Hill for the pitchers. He's had a ton of conversations. He's had a lot of, going back to spring training, just trying to pick someone like Oviedo's brain. Like, how are you using your slider? How are you using your breaking ball? Now we see Oviedo using his slider and breaking ball even more efficiently this year. It's not a coincidence that, Rich Hill, taking real interest in a young player's stuff that ends up translating. So it's not just Kutch. We're singling out Kutch here because candidly, I think
because it's a story. Yeah,
it's a story, and I also think he's the greatest poster boy of why you need this accountability, why you need this veteran leadership. I go back to the GM meetings in Las Vegas. I don't know if I've shared this story at all, but I got to have a pretty good, candid one-on-one conversation with Ben
Alex
Cherington.
Stump exclusive.
I had a pretty good, candid talk with Ben Cherington, and one of the things I brought up was the leader, needing those veterans in the clubhouse, and he gave a good answer, GM talk answer, and then I kind of pushed back, no, you need those clubs. I was in that clubhouse, and he kind of acknowledged they're not to say he knew how this offseason was going out, but it was one of those things that I left that conversation thinking he's going to acquire a first baseman soon, and there's going to be some veteran leadership in this clubhouse, and both ended up being something.
It's just really put me, again, you enjoy baseball when your team is better or when your team is competitive. I think that's, obviously with any sport, but seeing Andrew McCutchen come back and having this much fun, seeing the team have as much fun as they're having, I think there's a trickle down effect there. The home run sword, all the different
Pikachu.
things. Yeah, the Pikachu. That's one I saw yesterday. It's great. They're fun things that they build the camaraderie in the clubhouse. They make it less about this is your job and more about, hey, this is a game that we all grew up playing as kids. Let's have fun with it. They're all making, crazy money for playing a game that we all grew up playing. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun. It's a sport. It's supposed to be entertainment, not just for us, but for them too. And you can really see right now that this team is enjoying it. They're having fun with it.
They are having fun.
And that is, I think that's the contagious part for me. My question, so you sprung the first segment on me. I'm going to spring the third segment on you. And it's going to have something to do with how long that fun sticks around. All right, we're back for the third and final segment of the Pirates podcast to be named later. Alex, I have a question for you.
Yes, Eddie?
You said in our preseason predictions, if I remember correctly, 72 wins.
Yeah,
I think you were at 72. I was at 77. In that ballpark, no pun intended. With this start, is 72 wins now a disappointment?
Yeah. I would say 72 wins is a disappointment, and I'm going to preface it by saying I don't think 72 wins should ever be an achievable goal. The only time 72 wins should be the goal is whenever you already lost 90 games. Let's win out.
Let's be real here.
Mm-hmm.
COVID season, if that was a full season, that team was losing 100 games.
I don't think so.
Yep.
I thought the COVID year, that team got better as the year went on. I'm not going to hold any delusions that they were going to be a good baseball team, but they'd be goodbye, Eddie. Eddie's leaving. They would have won 70.
Bro. That team might have been worse than the team the year after it.
Eddie, I watched those teams. The 21 team was the worst out of the bunch.
Okay.
Unless we could do September 22. That was the worst.
We are okay, listen. Minimum obviously 2 100 loss seasons. We could argue and bicker about would that have been a third 100 loss season. To me, if you go 100 loss season, and then jump to 72 wins, I think that's I'm good with that.
You could feel like that's a good step forward, but that should never be the goal.
No, it should never be the goal, but
Yeah. And by extension, 72 wins
it wouldn't be a disappointment.
72 wins would still be a disappointment.
It would not be for me. It would if I saw that kind of improvement, okay, I would say, you know what? They're on the right track. I'm not upset about this. This isn't where we want to be, but it's a part of the process. It's a part of the journey to where you want to get to. And I could swallow that and not be disappointed. But now at 14-7, playing the way that they're playing, understanding what they're capable of, 72 wins is absolutely a disappointment now.
Yeah. I think this team still, at the time of this recording, finishes in the 70s in the win column.
So that was how I was going to end this.
Yeah.
Do you think that they crack? We won't even go 500. Do they crack 80 wins?
I mean, 80's 500. Yeah, whenever it's a game or
two. It's a game. Yeah. Okay. So do they crack 500? All right. Let me quit beating around the bush. Does this baseball team break 500 this year?
At this moment, I still say no.
Okay.
Because I still have my depth questions. But I will say, whatever you say, disappointment, an actual goal should be 82 wins.
I got to give a shout out to my buddy Tom Fody, if he is listening out there. He is the only person that I heard having this team over 500 preseason. And so far, Tom Fody, I hate to say it because I hate giving that man credit. He's on the right track. This team has been a blast to watch play baseball. They could do the small ball. They could blow up a team like they did the Rockies. They could pitch, they could pitch you and beat you that way. It's just been 21 games of fun, man. Honestly, it really has. And I think that now they have a legitimate shot at being a 500 baseball team. And in this league now, 500 gets you in the wild card mix.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hey,
they should honestly not that again. They should be shooting for a playoff spot. They should be. That should absolutely be the internal goal. If they are 500 at the trade deadline, they should add to the major league roster to make that possible. I don't think they're there yet, but they are playing very well out of the gate. They should get their best player back for the stretch run if they are somewhat competitive in all this. The goal should be to make the playoffs, as it should always be.
And I think we'll end on this because I think we've already gone past what we normally like to with the last segment, but that's okay. Randy Wagner brings up a really good point. If the pitching can hold up,
we've been live streaming.
Yeah, we've been live streaming, man.
Oh man.
If
Eddie,
the
you're not setting this up ever again.
If the pitching can hold up, there's no stopping us, the Pirates. I have the feeling that we can come back when down, and that's a good feeling. I agree with Randy here. It all boils down to the pitching. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get 11 in a row, 6-inning quality starts all the time like this. But if they get this kind of starting pitching, if they can have consistent starting pitching, this team is a playoff team. I wholeheartedly believe that. If the pitching is consistently good like this,
I'm not going to fight that. But it's as great as Oviedo has been. Can he do it over a whole year? Can Rowe do it over a whole year? He's never done it. Keller hasn't done it over a whole year. Rich Hill, I don't think, has pitched 130 innings in quite some time. Velasquez is whenever he's good, but we've also seen him tightrope with disaster.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ifs still with it, but I'll agree with Randy that if they do have the pitching, and they do have the potential to have the pitching, if the pitching does perform, then yeah, this is a playoff team.
I leave you with this. It's been 21 games. Enjoy it. The bottom can fall out tomorrow, and that's okay. Enjoy this while it lasts, whether it lasts 2 weeks or the entire season, because it's a different vibe in this city when the baseball team is good, and I'm enjoying the ride, man.
the NFL draft, and Pirates baseball is still relevant. That's a
Yep.
baby step.
Absolutely. It's been fun on the live stream, Alex Stumpf. We'll catch everybody next week. Enjoy the Buccos. We'll see you later.